Hey guys, I watched a documentary earlier this week, I think it was, on the Christian religious sect known as the Shakers. They were a strangely conservative group of people that started in the mid-1700s, and they were known for their dancing or shaking during their worship services. But they were also known for some other things. They chose to be celibate, meaning they never married, they never had children, yet their communities that they lived in actually grew, quite a bit during certain periods of time. Well, why? Well, I suppose one of the reasons for that was because they were an extremely loving and accepting group of people. Yet, they had very, very high standards. Within those standards were some things that they did, like making sure that all of your work that you do is done with excellence as to the Lord. Therefore, while their buildings were quite simplistic because they believed order came before beauty, they were also extremely well crafted, just really, really well done. Some of the items that these Shakers handcrafted were so well done that even today when they go up for auction, they fetch like really astronomically high prices. And their extremely good craftsmanship transferred over to their gardens as well. In fact, they were so good at gardening and they became so proficient at it that they were the first to commercially sell their seeds in bags that they made and stamped with instructions for how to grow these seeds on stamps and writing that they made with their own printing presses. But there was a disadvantage to their communal gardens being so productive. That disadvantage, it was this. When others in the area didn't have the success that the Shakers had with their gardening and became poor or bordered on starvation, those people would come and steal from the Shakers' gardens. So in order to protect their own interests, we'll call them, the normally loving and kind-hearted Shakers had to have a reaction. And I'm sure that you can imagine exactly what that reaction would have been in order to protect themselves. You see, in life, we're all put in these situations every day where we have something come into our life that we have to react to. And there are usually a bunch of options for how we react. And the reaction will set off a whole chain of events. And people will react to us based on our reaction. Remember what we talked about yesterday when we began or continued talking about Daniel, about King Nebuchadnezzar, and he told all the wise men and the psychics in Babylon that they had to tell him what his dream was and then they needed to interpret it for him. Well, that kind of a statement would certainly get a couple different reactions, wouldn't it? Daniel chapter 2 and verse 7 to 10. Listen to their reaction. It says this. Once more the astrologers and the wise men replied. They said, let the king tell his servants the dream and we'll interpret it. They said, just tell it to us, we'll interpret it. And the king answered, well, I'm certain you're trying to gain time because you realize that this is what I firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it for me. Well, the astrologers answered the king. They said, there is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king ever, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. The king's psychics looked at him and basically reacted to him with a, oh my word, this dude's an idiot kind of a reaction. Sure, they tried to keep their words respectful, but there's no doubt that their body language and the backs of their minds weren't very well hidden. Their reaction would probably be quite the norm though, wouldn't it? So we really can't blame them for reacting that way. Well, in verse 12, it says this: "This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men in Babylon. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, and the men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death also." But Daniel had a different reaction. Verse 14 goes on to say this: "Well, when Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, 'Why did the king issue such a harsh decree?' And Arioch then explained the matters to Daniel. And at this, Daniel went into the king and asked for time so he could interpret the dream for him." Daniel, instead of reacting with the typical, "Hey, this guy is an idiot" reaction, decided to approach it more with a, "Okay, let's just figure this out before we draw any conclusions" reaction. It reminds me of Proverbs 15 verse 1, that approach in there, which says this: "A soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words will stir up anger." And this reaction, at very least, bought Daniel and his friends some time. So how should we as believers react to things? And I get it. I think you know the answer. But in case you need an example to help you know the right answer, consider the Shakers once again and their garden being stolen from them. You see, they didn't end up posting a guard and fire weapons at the thieves in order to stop it. They didn't build bigger fences to keep the starving and the poor out of their garden. Instead, they decided to plant, in their words, 2 gardens. One for the thieves and one for their community. You see, they decided that it was only right to express God's love of people through their own actions. So how would God react? Would he have a disgusted look on his face due to the impossible nature of things? Or would God simply say, "Let's figure this out"? So the next time something comes your way that maybe puts you in a position of having to react, and it's coming, what are you going to do? Are you going to react with disgust? Or are you going to kind of take the approach that says, "We can figure this out"? Hey guys, let's figure out how to shake up a little Daniel in ourselves. It'll be better for everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.